Hello everyone! Today I am going to give you a little tour of my garden library. Now it is just 3 bookshelves, but I consider it to be a whole library. I have a bunch of gardening books that I really need to get through. I've read maybe 20%, if I'm being generous, of the books that I have back here. But I also have more than just books. I have things that store seeds or flowers. I have plants. So I really love this little area I've created and I use it so often. So I thought it'd be fun to tour you around. And I did do a video on things I do at the end of the garden season or while the garden's closed. And I mentioned some of the books I was reading. So now I'll show you all of the gardening or garden adjacent related books that I have, and I'll point out my favorites. I might open up some of them, but not all of them. Now, my favorite place to get books or almost anything from are thrift stores or antique stores. And I feel like sometimes the word antique makes people think expensive, but that's at least not how I shop. When I'm looking at antique stores, I look for just 1, things I like, 2, things that are not expensive, and 3, things that seem like they're good quality. And I often find that I can get items that I'm looking for cheaper and better quality and more unique at a thrift or antique store. So that's actually where a lot of these books and a lot of the other items on my shelves are from. Also, where this robe is from. So I have a robe that I wear outside into the garden right now, which is much thicker than this since it's winter here in Chicago. But I realized I liked having that to throw on. So I wanted one for the warmer months. And I found this on Etsy from just a secondhand dealer, and this I think is from the 1950s. But I think it's really cute. I really like it. So I'm excited to have a new garden robe and give a second life to something, or maybe 3rd or 4th. It's from the 1950s, so who knows? So I will take you up close and show you around, but first of all, the bookshelves themselves. These are from Crate & Barrel. I believe the collection is called Calypso, and it's a modular collection, so you can mix and match pieces. I knew I wanted open shelves, but closed cabinets to hide all the vases and craft items. I'm not gonna show you those today because I already showed you those in my organization video, but I love how this came together, and it's just 3 separate total bookcases all smushed together into one. We redid the room I'm standing in 2023. I think it was the summer of 2023. This is the first place we ever owned. We moved in 2020, and I'm glad I had that extra time to kind of get used to how I was going to use this space. This is the top floor, so it does connect to the rooftop deck gardens. One's that way, one's that way. So I keep almost everything that I need for my garden up here somewhere. So it has really turned into my own plant garden lady space. But luckily, my husband is fine with that. So for 3 years, the walls were white. I had 1 folding table here. And I don't know if I had any bookshelves or maybe like 1 bookshelf that I've had for a while, but now I feel like it's really become a room that I'm gonna love and use forever, or for as long as we're here, which I'm hoping is a very long time. Now let me start you off with what is sitting on top of these bookcases. I knew that I didn't want shelves that went all the way to the ceiling because I wanted to have some space here for my baskets. And I can't remember exactly where all of these are from, but I know that this one is definitely a thrift store, and all of these were, I think, $20 or under. So again, nothing that I'm getting from these antique stores is really expensive. So this was definitely an antique store. I think this was just online at a small business, so it's not from a thrift or antique store. Definitely antique store, definitely antique store. And then let me show you this one. So not only do I tend to not go towards the more expensive things in antique stores, I also don't know what is like a good deal or not. I just grab things that I think look pretty. All of the baskets above me here I use outside, so these come in and out of the garden, up and downstairs to the kitchen. This is an indoor only basket, and that was not my intention when I got it. So I got this from Affordable Antiques in Naperville, Illinois. And again, I just picked it up because it was a $20 basket and I thought it was cute. Then I took it up to checkout, and the person who was ringing me up was complimenting it, and then they were so excited they pulled someone else that worked there over to look at it. So I might butcher a bit of the history, but first of all, this basket is very, very old. It's made from the peanut plant woven together, and then they could tell how old it was because of the way the nails are nailed in. It looks like the nails go all the way through, and then like the part of the nail that goes that way got hammered down to be flat. these are the things I am told. I, again, don't know anything about how to find good quality antiques. They also said that so it's one of those places where there's multiple people that have different booths all in one store. They said that whoever's booth this was from probably also didn't know how old it was, but I got this for $20 because that's what it was marked as. I sometimes will blow the dust off. I'll sometimes put dried flowers in it, but this is not an outdoor basket because I don't want to ruin it. All the rest of them though, maybe they do have that type of history, but no one told me. So those all do go outside with me. Now we'll come in closer and I'll focus on each of these 3 shelving sections and tell you what I have in here. First though, up in this corner is a philodendron. When I first started getting into houseplants, I went crazy and got all of the houseplants I could find. And then because I tend to ignore them throughout the garden season, because gardening I just love a little bit more, I now go towards low maintenance plants. Philodendrons, pothos, snake plants, ZZ plants, those are all incredibly low maintenance. I've trimmed this so many times. It is next to a grow light, so I do think it does enjoy that, but I think it would also be fine here without the Soltech grow light. I do have a morning glory growing up there, which does need the light. I just have it turned off for this video, but philodendrons are fantastic trailing plants, or if you want them to climb up poles, you can do that too. Here on this top shelf, I just have clear jars filled with dried flowers. I have some dried straw flowers, which these are from the 2023 garden. I need to grow more straw flowers because I missed having them last year and they dry so well, just like Gomphrena and Status. They look almost identical, but I have a few different colors here. I did try to organize them by color. I use them in wreaths, I use them in flower crowns, and I just think they look pretty stored on the shelf instead of tucked away into a cabinet. I also do have some dried lavender, and then I have dried rose petals. Now, I don't think this is a flavorful rose petal, so I just use this, well, one as decor, but also as confetti in gift bags, anything like that. And in a similar vein, I also have some more small flowers that work really well as confetti. So if I'm making a gift bag for someone, I'll just sprinkle some of that in the tissue paper or in the box that they're opening, and I just think it looks really pretty. Or if I'm having a garden party, just on the table. And then the last 2 things up here are photo albums, and they each have a different purpose. I really like having these. So this first one here, this is just my own photo album specifically of garden memories. So this is from the Bailey Nursery event last summer that I went to. I love having these to look back at instead of just having all of my pictures on my phone, which I don't really scroll through that much. I like printing them out and then having them in a binder. Let me find some other ones here. Oh, this is when my garden was featured in a magazine, so I have that in here as well. It's just a little keepsake of all of the garden adventures I've gotten to have so far, and hopefully I keep adding to it. Now, this brown one, I also really like what I've done with this. I subscribe to a lot of garden magazines, and when I do that, I'll often find something that I'll flag to come back to or that I'm interested in, or a photo that I think is really pretty. And instead of hanging on to a pile of magazines, I cut them out and I put them into this binder. So this is one of those photo albums where the clear plastic comes off, you peel it off. What's underneath it is sticky, so you just stick whatever you want on there and then lay the plastic back down. So now instead of holding onto a bunch of magazines, I just cut out and save the pieces that I want. And I actually do go back and reference this. I think I utilize this more than I would if I just had a pile of magazines and wasn't sure which article or which photo was in which magazine. Now on these 2 shelves, I actually start having some of the garden books in my garden library, and I'll take you up close. I'm not gonna, again, talk about all of them, but I'll show you the categorization I have so far, and then I will talk about some of my favorites that I have read already. On this shelf here, this section, I've put together anything that's related to herbs or foraging or cooking or making things with herbs. I liked having those together. I thought it made sense. And then I also have a binder here. I took an online herbalism course a couple winters ago, so any of my notes I put in here as well. And then I do have my notebook of tea recipes. So anytime I put a mixture together that I like, I will write it in here and add a little drawing. This vase here was my grandma's. I like having pieces around this room especially that are either from my grandparents, my parents, people that I love that might not be with me anymore. So it's a great way to remember them just by looking around the room. Dried flowers here, I think these are dried corn flowers from a couple years ago. I have this little trunk that we got in Nice. We were there in September of 2023, right after we went to one of the botanic gardens, and then there was a little shop that had this trunk. I'm a sucker for small trunks and baskets, which is why I've banned myself from getting any more. I don't have anything stored in this one, so I'm trying to figure out what to put in here. I do have seeds in some other ones, but I don't, well, maybe I'll just get more seeds to fill this. And then over on the end are the two books that I'm looking at when we're going through our hauls. So the Encyclopedia of Cut Flowers and then Flowers and Their Meaning. Now on this shelf, well, we'll get to the Book of Pigeons last because I'm most excited for that. But over here on the left-hand side, this is my general gardening book collection. So it's not necessarily specific towards a type of garden or a type of flower, but just general gardening. And some of these I got from my friend who her grandma was a huge gardener. She passed away, so she gifted me some of the books. And when she came here and visited one day, I think it was for the garden party, she saw these and it made her really happy and emotional to see that something of her grandma's was living on. So it makes me really happy to have these. I haven't read them yet. I need to, but I think most of these two are also at least a few decades old, which makes me excited. This section over here is all container-specific gardening books. Again, a lot of them are from secondhand shops, thrift shops. Some of them are a little bit newer. I've read through some. I need to get through more of them, but I always love the older books, specifically because I can see how much has or has not changed, and oddly, not much has really changed. And now, let's look at this Book of Pigeons. So this is also very, very old, and because I fell in love with pigeons last year in the garden, I had to get it. And it's, well, one, it is very delicate, so I do try to be careful when I'm using it, but not only does it have a bunch of the history of pigeons and information, it has really beautiful drawings. Let me open this up. Whoop. But look at that. Look how cool these drawings are. And I actually got a print, so I didn't tear out an image from the book. I ordered a print of one of these to frame for my wall, and I just love them. They're so unique and so cool. Moving along now to the second bookshelf. Top shelf of this one, over here on the left, I have all of my books that are either about flower gardening specifically or about one certain type of flower. So I have some in here, A Garden of Wildflowers, Living with Flowers, that's a newer one. The Color Dictionary of Flowers and Plants from Home and Garden, that's an old one. It's really cool to thumb through. And then I would say, if you sometimes feel overwhelmed by all the types of hydrangeas and when to prune them, like I do, I really like, which one is it? Success with Hydrangeas, A Gardener's Guide by Lorraine Bellato. So this book really helped simplify everything about all the different types of hydrangeas, and I actually read the whole thing. So that's one of the ones on the bookshelf that I've gotten through completely so far. I have two more vases that belong to my grandma. This toolbox was like 10 or 15 bucks from a thrift store down the street. This is where I have all my vegetable seeds. And then I have my section of houseplant books, which is only 3 of them because, again, my real passion is gardening, but I love and respect all my houseplants as well. My favorite book so far from this section is this one, which is called Every Room a Garden. I think this is from I think it is the 1960s. Again, surprised that not a lot has changed over the last few decades, but also this book is filled with sarcasm, which I love a lot. So I found both insightful facts and humor while reading this book, again from a thrift store. This second shelf here doesn't have any books, but it does have some fun things. First of all, this is one of the Proven Winners houseplants that they grow in these jars. So I don't do anything except add some water to it. It's a pothos. It lives here. It's not really by the grow light or the windows, which are over there, but it's very happy. Then I have a tulip painting. This was from an artist that lives in Chicago. Him and his wife, I think they're both artists, and their house is on the Bucktown Garden Walk. So it's not our neighborhood, but a very close by neighborhood. And I saw the tulip painting and I had to get it. I'm not sure if this is him or his wife that painted this one, but either way, I think these purple tulips are beautiful. And again, I love having things that are either old or local. I don't know why I have this, which is for cream, that I got from a thrift store. It has flowers on it, which is why I got it. I don't know where this should be, but I feel like not here, but I'm gonna leave it here for now. This clock It was from my childhood home growing up. It doesn't work, but I do have a business card of a person who fixes clocks in Chicago, so I should probably get that fixed. It just has, like, I remember as a child looking at this clock because it seemed so cool, and now I have it myself. And then this I also think is really, really cool. This is a poem written by a local poet. I believe their Instagram is Croetry. I will link it down below. But what they do is they will go to events with their typewriter. You'll say a few words that you want a poem about, and they'll write you a poem. So this one, I think I said gardening in the city or urban gardening, something along those lines. And the poem that they came up with was called Blossoming, and it says, when dandelions crack through concrete, it brings the pure light of sunshine splitting clouds. You know, the trees were the original skyscrapers, and nature is the seed from which the cities grew. Rivers inspire roads, subways tangle underground like roots, and to bring unencumbered beauty to the midst of the grid and urban sprawl is like conjuring a miracle, like coaxing a bulb to open by singing it a hymn. The stamens stretch skyward, the flowers upturn their faces, the branches join hands in jubilant dance. At the thrill of shared existence, the joy of mutual growth. How cool is that? I also love when I see people who have a particular talent that shows their brain works in a way that mine does not, because that was written in a few minutes. And something I could not do is write you a poem in a few minutes that sounded anywhere near as good as that based on a few words that you told me. I also have in here this candelabra. I put little tea lights in here and light them. I probably should do that. When it's tucked back here, it's harder to access, but it's also pretty. And it's flowers, which is why I got it. And then I have a jug vase back there too that I need to bring out in the summer. This last shelf here, I have this candy container covered in hydrangeas. I got this up in Mackinac Island, and it has Werther's Original because I'm ready to be everyone's grandma with a bowl of Werther's Original. They're also just delicious. And then something else I have, which I don't know what to do with. This, I mean, it's like from Target. It's not antique or anything. We are not the type of people that usually have like a drink bar out, so nothing's ever been in this. I don't know what to do with this. Should I just use it as a base? Anything else that might be fun, let me know. This little chest, again from an antique store in Chicago, 20 to 25 bucks, has all of my cut flower seeds in it. This magnifying glass I got at an estate sale, I think $5 or $10. Has a little crystal handle and it's gold. I think it's really pretty, but I can't remember if it was either my horticulture class or a botanical drawing class that I took that recommended looking at plants with a magnifying glass to really see the details. So I do that in my garden sometimes and it's really fun. I also have this, which is plantain Salle. I think if you get stung, you're supposed to rub it on your sting. I've never been stung in my life, which I think almost makes me more terrified because I can only imagine the worst case scenario of what it's like. I don't think I'm allergic, but I guess we don't know yet for sure. But I have this on hand just in case. And then lastly, I have this print. This was also from Nice. On the trip, we went to France, my first time ever. It was so amazing. We got to see the garden of Claude Monet. Anyway, but this was a print that I'm pretty sure we got from Nice because we were in Paris part of the time, Nice the other part. And let me see what it says. Le chat domestique, le chat d'Angora, le chat sauvage. I think it's talking about like domestic and wild cats, but I love cats, maybe even more than I love plants. So I really love this. And I also love that there's a memory tied to it as well. So anytime I see this, I will think of that trip. On to the third and final bookshelf now. Top shelf, philodendron. This is philodendron Brazil. I don't know how long I've had this and how many times I've trimmed it, but I do love the way that it cascades down on top of the other things that I have in the shelves. It just makes me feel like I'm in sort of an indoor garden jungle, and I love it. I also have up here a teapot from an antique store, because why not? And then I have these, which I got from a garden center on the way up to Mackinac Island, I believe. And these are just decorative stakes for in the ground. I think I'm gonna put these in the parkway next year, and then I wanna get some more, but not antique, just from a garden center and really pretty. And then this here is my non-gardening books. I got these again at thrift stores or antique stores. This is a book of poems. This is Uncle Tom's Cabin, Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, and then I have a collection from Henry David Thoreau. I need to get through these. I started reading these and then got distracted by the garden season. Now on to the second shelf underneath the philodendron. This here is an old jewelry box that I got. I think this one was from a thrift store in the Starved Rock area in Illinois. And then within the drawers, I have the little plastic photo boxes that have all of my dried flowers. I always do try to find ways, if I'm gonna store something out in view, try to find ways to store it that's a little bit different and pretty. That's why I stored all my dried flowers in the terracotta pots. I'll link that video down below, but it's a pretty way to have things around my house. I have a paperweight with a flower. And then this section here are all books that have monthly sections in them. So this is a little journal. This is called The Curious Gardener, and there's a section for each month. This is The Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady, chapter for each month. I think The Tulip by Anna Pavord, I just put it here because this is also her book, but I don't believe this is split into months. I need to read this. But these I love, and I've read 2 or 3 years now that I will just come out when it's the beginning of the month. I'll take out these books, I'll read through the chapters, I'll put them back until next month. And then over here, I don't know if I really came up with a section for this, but I have the Dictionary of Horticulture, which I just got from a bookstore in my hometown, Chesterton, Indiana, but I don't remember the name of the bookstore. I'll link it down below. It's very cute, and they have so many great books. Gardens in America from the same place, Onward and Upward in the Garden from the same place, and then a new book from the Botanic Garden, Around the World in 80 Plants. And then on to the final bookshelf. This first section here is all books that are either about a specific person or a specific person's garden. I have books on Bunny Mellon. I have 2 of her autobiographies. She was an avid gardener, and I believe she created the Rose Garden at the White House with Jackie Kennedy. I also have Beatrix Potter's Gardening Life. I have this book. It's the Royal Highness the Prince of Wales Gardens, and I got this when I was at the Chicago Gardening Awards. They were giving away books. What else do I have in here? Oh, Iris Apfel, not gardening related, but I like her. And then a book on Monet's garden that I got since I saw it in real life. I have a fisherman's basket. This, I don't actually think is antique. I think I just got it from a gift shop so I can put flowers in here. And I will put either fresh or dried flowers into this little hole, and it just looks pretty on the shelf. And then this is a painting of my garden. Look at this. Oh, I love this so much. This is from Sarah Glupker. I think it was the Lilac Festival. I was at the Lilac Festival. She was there. We didn't run into each other, but she had seen that I had tagged being there. She's an artist in Michigan. And then she asked if she could take one of my photos from Instagram and paint it. And I was like, obviously, yes. So she did. And then she listed it for sale on her website. And I was like, well, I'm not letting someone else buy that. I need this of my own garden. So now I have a painting of my own garden. And it makes me so happy. This is from 2022 or 2023. It's funny though, because I can tell like, oh, my raised bed wasn't there yet. Those are my raspberry bushes. Or, oh, that was the year that I grew the blue salvia. So I love having this so much. And I think I'm either gonna have her if she comes to Chicago or another local artist come and paint my garden. And I mean, this was $100, which for a painting of your own garden, I don't think is that much, although it might be the most expensive individual item on my bookshelves. But this just makes my heart happy. Last thing I want to point out is just this pothos. I have had this plant since 2018 or 2019. I know that I moved here with it in 2020. It was from Home Depot. It has been trimmed so many times. It has been divided so many times. It just loves its life. So this is again why I love pothos plants. I basically wait till it hits the ground, I'll trim it, and that's where it's been now for a few years. Oh, and then this painting, also from Affordable Antiques in Naperville. That is a painting of mostly zinnias, which of course I love. So yeah, this is my garden library, which I love so much. And again, it has books that I use, but it also has my seeds, my baskets, my pressed flowers, things that I use regularly once the garden is open. So it just makes me happy to have this little section here. And I am, again, glad that I waited a few years to figure out how I use this space in order to start actually buying furniture. I do not miss the folding table that I had at all, but it did its job for those few years. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any really good garden book recommendations, although I'm trying to make sure I read everything I have here before I add more books. But I mean, there's shelf space for more books here. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.